These are baby Amano shrimp larvae. And what if I told you that you could replace hatching brine shrimp to feed your fish with these tiny little baby Amano shrimp? Today, I'm going to show you exactly how I do that in this video. These tiny little baby Amano shrimp were born in the cover of darkness last night in this tiny little Nano aquascape. This nano tank is a 2.5 gallon that houses just 5 adult Amano shrimp from my Amano shrimp breeding colony here of sun orange Amano shrimp. You can see the adults there in the background, and I am selectively breeding these sun orange Amano shrimp to get the most red color out of them as I can. Most aquarists have known the Amano shrimp for decades as the algae eating king of the aquarium. And most Amano shrimp keepers keep them in community tanks with fish. They notice that their Amano shrimp breed automatically, and they very commonly find pregnant female Amano shrimp just like this in their community tank, but they don't often see the babies. And that's because as soon as your tank lights come on the morning after a hatch like this, your fish are going to have a feast of baby Amano shrimp larvae. Now, that's why I keep my Amano shrimp in shrimp only tanks that allow me to show you, just like this video, that the larvae survive just fine without any predation from fish. And that's also why I suggest anyone looking to get into breeding Amano shrimp separate their pregnant female Amano shrimp away from any fish before they have the babies. But what if I told you that you could replace completely hatching brine shrimp for your fish? Now, I know some of you with giant racks full of fish tanks, or maybe you're even a local fish store owner, you're probably thinking, well, that's impossible. I would need too many Amano shrimp. For the average hobbyist and even most enthusiasts, this is well within your reach. And the reason for that is these Amano shrimp are constant breeders. You see, the females will produce the eggs on their back. That's where their ovaries are located. So in this dimly lit tank here, it may be a little hard to tell, but that female does have what we call a saddle. Those are the eggs that have basically moved into the staging area on the shrimp's back behind their head, where they develop and they prepare to be moved down underneath the shrimp's tail. That's the most common time we reference a pregnant shrimp. We call that the shrimp being buried because the tiny little eggs kind of look like berries. With Neocaridina shrimp, you're lucky to get 50 babies. But with these Amano shrimp, they actually continuously release eggs for about 24 hours. And with a large mature female Amano shrimp, you can easily find yourself with 1,000 or more babies. Now, if you want to raise those babies to adults, I show you on this channel, if you check my channel, I show you exactly how to do that using beginner-friendly, simple, low-tech methods by simply mixing up marine salt according to the instructions on the bag. It really couldn't be easier. And I show you very simple, budget-friendly ways to feed the Amano shrimp without using complicated methods like phytoplankton or rotifers. I do it just using infusoria. Now, the type of infusoria, which is just a blanket term for tiny little microscopic critters that naturally occur in our aquariums, the kind that I use is paramecium. Those are those little dots you actually see floating around in the video here. If you have a shrimp tank or a snail tank, if you put a flashlight on it while it's dark, you'll see you already have this infusoria called paramecium. So I turned my baby Amano shrimp grow out tanks basically into infusoria cultures. And the infusoria is cultured right alongside the baby Amano shrimp larva, and it just makes for a very, very simple and easy method to raise the babies. But you'll quickly find yourself in a situation with hundreds and hundreds of Amano shrimp if you continue raising all these babies. So what I do when I find myself in a position where I don't need more baby Amano shrimp is I just feed them to my fish. Now, the first tool of the trade that I use here, I'll show you by simply putting it in the tank here so that it's under some lighting. This is a inexpensive reusable K-cup coffee filter. And so I'm going to use this to hold the baby Amano shrimp after I catch them. I'm going to take a clamp and just clamp it to the side of the aquarium so that the baby Amano shrimp larva stay submerged in the water. So you would do this if you're looking to breed Amano shrimp, or you would do this if you're looking to feed them to your fish. Either way, it just creates a very easy way to hold the baby Amano shrimp without having to use a separate container of water. Now I'm going to use a turkey baster here. And it's just as easy as it looks. You're just going to suck the baby Amano shrimp larva into the turkey baster, and you're going to gently squirt them out into that reusable K-cup. And that's going to trap them where they're not going to be able to get out of there. Now, one tip I have for you is when you're putting them into the K-cup, you don't want to just blast them real hard against the mesh of the K-cup. You want to try to be gentle and release that water into the K-cup with their fragile nature in mind. I mean, these are tiny, tiny little larvae. But as you can see, there's hundreds of them in here. And I know that with brine shrimp, we've got a lot of raising brine shrimp, hatching brine shrimp, preparing salt water for brine shrimp. And it's not a process that happens automatically. There's a lot of elbow grease by the fish keeper that goes into it. So depending on the size of your fish room or how often you like to feed your fish live food, you can just simply set up an Amano shrimp tank, or you can just add Amano shrimp to your existing community aquarium or aquascape. And once you notice the females have become buried or pregnant, you would just move those females to a smaller container before they have the babies. Now, you'll see in some of the few breeding Amano shrimp tutorials on YouTube where people like to put the female Amano shrimp in a plastic bag and turn an airstone on full blast to try to mimic a rushing river and trick the Amano shrimp into releasing the babies. I don't really believe in that method. I don't think the shrimps are tricked into thinking they're in a river just because you turn on an airstone and use a plastic bag to trap them so they can't get traction and climb out. I think it just stresses them out. And these Amano shrimp are in an egg when they're under your adult Amano shrimp's tail. When the female's pregnant, they haven't hatched yet. So what I like to do is just give the female Amano shrimp time for her to hatch the eggs all on her own. I don't, count the days that the female is pregnant or anything like that. I just simply monitor. And my tip to you, if you're keeping them in a community setting, is once you notice that your female Amano shrimp is pregnant, I would move her to that separate holding tank within 2 weeks. And that'll give you more than enough time to have her comfortable and acclimated to the new environment. And it could be something as simple as, a small 1 gallon betta bowl. And I don't say that because I think bettas need to be in a 1 gallon. I just mean that's what they call them at Walmart. They're about 12 bucks. You could use a food container. You could really use anything. The shrimp's not going to care. You don't have to set up a whole separate aquarium. You don't have to worry about cycling a separate aquarium. It's really as simple as you want to make it. So as you can see, there's still a couple left in here, but the female is going to be continuously releasing eggs over a period of about 12 to 24 hours today. So I'm not necessarily concerned about getting each and every single one, because I can come back later today and get the rest of them to feed my fish. So the fish that I'm going to be feeding these larvae to are part of a special project that I have going on. And I'll show you these fish here. Now I've got some Celestial Pearl Danio in this tank. And I also have a couple wild type Amano shrimp you'll see on the sponge filter there. But these CPDs, or Galaxy Rasboras as they're also called, there's 3 of them in here. 2 of them are more or less just kind of moral support and tank mates for one very special Celestial Pearl Danio that's in here. I'll see if we can find her. So I had a breeding group for a couple years of Celestial Pearl Danio that I was mixing in some of the offspring back in with the adults and inbreeding the colony, which is very common in fish keeping. And what I noticed is I was starting to get a lot of defects with some of the babies. And so I decided I was just going to reset my colony completely. There's the female I'm talking about. So I decided I was going to reset the colony completely. So I actually sold off all of my adult fish. The babies that I had left were big enough that they could be rehomed. And all of my Celestial Pearl Danios went away. After about a week, the tank began to refill with Celestial Pearl Danios as all the eggs began to hatch and the parents were no longer around to eat the eggs or the newborn fry. So I ended up with a brand new batch of the same genetic defect filled baby Celestial Pearl Danios that had me resetting my whole colony. And out of all of those babies, there were some that looked perfectly fine, although they probably do have some bad genetic markers in there. And of all of those babies that looked perfectly fine, one of them, which is the one I'm showing you here, has fins that are about twice or more longer than the rest of this fish's brothers and sisters. And so now that I've got a Longfin Celestial Pearl Danio, which is a mutation, it is a genetic defect, just like the bad genetic defects that I was looking to get rid of. I'm going to be growing her out there. At least I'm almost positive it's a female. It's still kind of early to try to call it with these fish when they're not colored up, but I do believe it's a female. And I'm going to grow her out and breed her to a completely unrelated male, which is called outbreeding. And I'm hoping that that unrelated male will cover up some of the bad genetics that I was running into with her breeding set colony. And I'm going to hopefully be able to stabilize that longfin gene in the new Celestial Pearl Danio breeding project. So that's going to be a fun thing that we're going to be working on over the period of several weeks. But let me get this small container here, this reusable K-cup, out of the shrimp tank, and I'm going to release some, not all, of these larvae into this tank with the Celestial Pearl Danios. And I'm going to save some as well for the tank next to this one. It has some more Celestial Pearl Danios that made the cut and were not culls out of that large batch that was born. I've got most of them in a 40-gallon. But as you can see, we've got some of our larvae transferred over here. It's probably going to take these CPDs a second or two to kind of figure out what's going on. They're pretty shy, but as you can see there, they're already starting to check out the larvae. And it won't take them long at all. Start eating them. Once they eat one, they realize, oh, okay, this is really good. So they'll eat the rest of them. So this is something that not a lot of fish keepers ever really think about. And I think part of it is because Amano shrimp are typically kept in community aquariums. So when your lights come on in the morning after all of these babies hatch, typically your fish start eating them right away. So by having that female separate, if you want to take some of these larvae and grow them out to adult size, you can. If you want to harvest them and grow them out and hold them in salt water as you feed them out periodically to your fish, you can do that. I mean, the possibilities are really endless. But by doing it this way, you rely less, or you can completely detach from the never ending process of constantly preparing and hatching out brine shrimp to feed your fish. And as we know, with tariffs and shipping issues and things like that, brine shrimp have kind of become a little bit more of a rare commodity over the last year or so. So I just want to kind of show you some visual proof, some evidence that it is done. It's very easy to do to feed your fish with these Amano shrimp larvae. The fish love them. They're just as nutritious, if not more nutritious for your fish than brine shrimp. And the reason for that is your brine shrimp are only going to be as nutritious as their parents were. And brine shrimp eggs are typically wild harvested, obviously, and you don't know what kind of life the parents had and what kind of head start the baby brine shrimp have in those eggs. I mean, the parents could have been just barely surviving and barely getting enough nutrition to actually produce those brine shrimp eggs. Typically, those brine shrimp eggs that you see, they're a process of the brine shrimp being in harsh conditions. When brine shrimp are in favorable conditions and they're loving where they live and they're getting more than enough food, they have live young. They're live bears when things are great. It's not until they suspect that everything is about to end, that the walls are closing in, you could say, that's when they start producing those cysts that we harvest and sell in the hobby. So with these baby Amano shrimp larvae as a food source for your fish, obviously I'm controlling the lives of the adult Amano shrimp, making sure that they get the best foods like bloodworms here and there and top of the line shrimp foods and even some fish foods. And I really think that helps to make the baby Amano shrimp larva as, if not more nutritious than those brine shrimps. So just kind of a cool thing for you to think about. A lot of people have never actually thought about it. And if you've got a mono shrimp already, you've got a great head start to try this. They're going to breed automatically on their own. So if you're interested in raising a mono shrimp larva to adulthood, make sure you check out the channel where I've got a ton of videos on doing that. I appreciate you checking out the video as always, and we'll see you in the next one.